Make a start. Got it. So good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to join me, Matthew, and during this afternoon. I know you are having a lunch break, so please take it easy. And if you prefer to switch off your camera, please feel free to do so. So I don't see myself, as a system convening expert as such. And in fact, it was really a bit of a surprise. I mean, a very nice surprise, of course, to be chosen by Beth and Etienne and appear on the book. So the main kind of purpose of this call, for me, is really just to share my personal experience and have some good discussion with everyone and see how we can use the system convening approach to improve the quality of things that matters to you in your environment. So I obviously don't have the magic wand, but if you're interested in quality improvement, and I'm really, more than happy to connect. Although the work, we do, we work in different part of the healthcare system, but I'm sure like many of the challenges we are facing are really, they are this very similar in nature. So Durian has, I feel like, he has given me quite a challenging topic, how to bridge professional and patient experience through community. So I thought long and hard, and to be honest, and I think, I can't really offer any great solutions, but what I can do is share my experience, and hopefully you will be able to find something useful to support your work, to improve the quality, and things that matters to you. So one of the key things that I see, here is the how and the bridge. So when we talk about bridge, I was thinking, what bridges are we talking about? So obviously, the kind of bridge, for you or works for you, it might not be the same for me or other people. So as a professional healthcare worker, so our words are very often they like gold to the patient. They follow to the word we said. Patient they really trust us, and they rely on us to to get well again. So they see us as expert, have lots of respect. I'm sure you are have experience on this. So one of the things that I feel, we often forget is the fact that patients, they are actually, they are experienced by experts of their own health and their own well-beings. So just to give you a little bit of a background about me. So I am a therapeutic radiographer by background. I specialize in the cancer treatment called radiotherapy, or people call radiation therapy. So, the kind of colorful screen that you see is the kind of things that I have been doing for many, many years. So I use the computer software, playing around with the radiation beam, like you see in the bottom corner of the screen. So what we're trying to do is give a very high dose of radiation to the cancer, like the red bit, and sparing all the normal tissue. So it looks very kind of sci-fi, Star Trek-like. And these are the kind of equipments that our team used to deliver the treatment. So one thing I just want to mention, I am a radiographer, but I can't actually fix any radio because there's lots of people. I think they think, oh, is that something related to radio? What you're doing. So I am currently, I am we call quality superintendent. So it's basically a quality manager or quality lead. People call different course in a different way. So what I do is basically support the service, everything that is related to quality. So if you think about, the normal job description, what we, see on the paper is for example, for my job, I am responsible to maintain the ISO 9001 certified quality management system. So one of the very key requirements in this is about quality improvement. And what the job description doesn't really emphasize or say a lot is about all the collaboration work, the liaison work, and like coordinating things, closing the loop in the system, and filling gaps and bridging differences with multiple various different teams across the organizations. And very often I actually feel like, I think I am more like a quality coordinator rather than a quality manager as such. So if you're curious to know about my journey, my system convening journey, so I'll be happy to just share my rather ordinary story. So this is my little toddler. Well, he's now 14, so no longer little. So he had very limited vocabulary, as a little toddler. So one late evening, just before midnight, he told me like his ear hurts. So naturally, we thought, oh no, this might be an ear infection. So we took him to the nearest A&E, and what we didn't expect was it became a very difficult and emotional night for us. So my son was triaged by the A&E nurse. So this is very standard procedure. It wasn't a particularly busy night. There were only about 3 or 4 patients, waiting at the time. So after the initial triage, we've been waiting in the waiting area for quite a while. When an hour's gone by, all the other patients, they have left A&E. While we were still waiting without any, we didn't get any attention from the team at the time. So I thought like, well, this is not right. What is going on? So let me just go and ask the nurses. And then shortly after, one of the registrar came to us and say, so we need to do some chest X-ray. We need to get the ECG organized and also take some blood. So I was thinking, well, what is going on? Because he came in with complaining, his ear was in pain. So why are we having chest X-ray? Why we have to do ECG and taking all the bloods from a very little grumpy and exhausted toddler in the middle of the night? So we had all these procedure and checks done, and with lots of waiting. And in the meantime, I can hear the team, the A&E team at the time, they were calling consultant for advice couple of times, and then they were talking about our case, but you don't know what they're talking about. So that kind of put us into a very uncomfortable positions. So while we were waiting and having all this X-ray, ECG done, it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. The registrar came back and said, we want to admit your son to the hospital, and we need to do further checks. And we were in contact with Great Ormond Street for further advice. And that was a very emotional and traumatic moment for us as new parents and having a young toddler. So my son, he was later diagnosed with a congenital heart conditions. So, I mean, despite all this very traumatic experience and a very unpleasant night, I was actually really grateful. Our whole family was very grateful. The triage nurse in the A&E department, he was the one who has picked up his very unusual and slow heart rate. And that's the kind of turning point, I say, my system convening seed has been kind of sore. So this is the moment that I still remember, and it was really registered, printed in my head. And I still remember today how difficult that moment was. So after this, I started to have a lot of soul searching and thinking about much deeper about a lot of the assumptions me as a professional, healthcare professional, what am I thinking, what kind of assumptions I have. So very often I feel like, I know how the patient feels. I am doing the best I can in the best interest of the patient. I assume patients, they make good choices, but in reality, over the years, what I realized, a lot of our assumptions, unconscious assumptions, are not necessarily true. So in our formal education as a quality, healthcare professional, we have been taught a lot of hard skills like, science, like knowledge, that we picked up, from university, from our on-job experience, etc. But in reality, what people, or like, our training or professional training didn't tell us or like train us on, is how to be authentic, how to be empathetic, and a lot of these things, they are actually not something that we're born with, and we just assume everyone, are kind. But sometimes, from experience, we know that is not necessarily the case. So I started to kind of like look into my own kind of behavior. So sometimes, when we think, we are being kind, but at what level of sympathy or empathy or compassion, are we talking about? Are they actually the same thing? And can I actually say, I feel for you and I am here to help you, when a patient is in, in the worst moment in their life. So I think a lot of over a couple of years, like, after the, my son's initial diagnosis, I step back and then like really reassess, like, the kind of like, professional patient relationship that, we think we know about, and a lot of deeper questions like, what sort of assumptions am I making, and how honest I am being with myself, and what happens if I don't do anything, and also like, where the power actually lies, and one of the big question is, I want to do something to improve, like, the service, and I have to put my hands up at the time. A lot of the things that I feel about is really how can I help to improve, like, the children having, the similar cardiac conditions. What can I do to help them, to help more people? So it was purely, quite a, I would think, now thinking back, it's quite a selfish thing, to begin with. And after some time, and what I realized is actually this is quite an exhausting thing to do, especially I am trying to make myself feel more in control of a condition that actually I don't really know much about. And I have to learn to let go and then put my trust into the cardiology team that is helping him and supporting him. So this is really like the turning point when I actually changed my focus from cardiology to and then look into my own working environment in radiation oncology and see what kind of effort and, what can I do to use my energy and my motivations to help, our own community. So although I'm not helping, like the cardiology patient, for example, but I am doing something good for the oncology patients. So when we talk about system convening, and I cannot, I have to wear my quality hat on. And I feel, we must consider the traditional management method and the system convening approach together, and really constantly navigating the landscape and trying to find the best balance or like trade-off between the two, because obviously, the two approach in one way or the other, they can be like, quite conflicting. So if you imagine the bigger circle represents your organizations. It contains all the things that you want, that you do, and all of the issue and problems that you have. And inside this little circle, if we describe this or call it, a quality problems. So now, what do you do when you have a quality problem? So very often that we hear, the senior management team, they will say, we will have a quality department, a quality improvement team, led by, for example, the quality manager. And this quality manager will then train all the staff, with all the improvement tools and methods, and they will understand the problem and then they will fix it. So it all sounds wonderful and it all makes sense. And that is typically what we see in our organization. So now, if we look at the rest of the organizations outside the little circle, so what sort of method, do you use to manage the rest of the organizations? I just wonder, if any of our audience, if you're able to share a method, a tools or model or theory of management to address these non-quality related problems in the organizations. If you can put that into the chat box, that will be really, I will be really curious to have a read later on. So many of us have come across solutions for example, hire the best staff. We set very clear objective, empower our staff. We provide better pay or incentive to motivate our staff. We have open door policy. We make sure our senior leadership team is very visible and easily accessible, by staff. But one of the issue here is, or not one, but a couple of the issue here is does our management appreciate the kind of system the staff they're working in to meet these objectives? And has our leadership build an organizational system that knows what works needs to be done for the customer? And do we know what is the best way to do it? And do we use scientific problem solving methods to learn and continually to improve? And is it possible for the best employee to produce quality efficiently and continuously when the system may not be built to support them doing their best work for our patients? So I would really appreciate, your thought and your experience, how this model, how you see this model and what's your experience, in reality. So my system convening journey started in my own discipline. So at the very beginning, so I kind of divide them into multiple stages when I look back. So at the very beginning, when I tried to pull different resources and people together, the landscape, it was really, really blurry. And then you can really sense there's lots of tension and conflict of interest and different priority between different people, different organization, different professional groups. So it was quite a messy landscape, quite a lot of chaos, I would say. And over the years, what I started to learn is to see, to trying to start making sense of all the disconnected informations that exists in the system. And this actually is a very, very long process, and there's lots of learning really involved in this. And in terms of the actual practical work, so what I managed to do is to pull to develop our regional kind of quality network into a national one. So, but like this whole process really require a lot of practice and really be open mind in what you see and how to pull all the resources that you need together. And there's no, you must like really get your hands dirty, walk the walk. And one of the things that I have learned is, you must have, a very diverse group of colleagues, and then so that you can really capture different perspectives and different needs of different people. If you want to convene people and then keep them together. So another thing, this is really my personal experience. I would say, there are lots of like, tools that is available in the social media. But to me, like, there's really like no golden rules or like one rules works for all. And what is really like, important is like be open-minded and be really flexible and creative in what you trying to do and trying to achieve. So some of the insights that I've got from my own kind of like, convening work is like, we're really, or I am not really here to look for perfection. I just want to make progress. And it's also very important to be, like I call porous. I read a very nice article about this. If anyone want to see, I'm happy to share that later on. So what being porous means is really like, forget your organizational boundary and forget the priority of your own organization. Because if you want to do something good, all the people around you, they will support you. And sometimes, organizational boundary like is something that we need to be conscious of and trying to see if we can navigate, around that boundary and find a way to do things that actually improve for the mutual benefit of, not just your own organization, but outside as well. And another thing to me that is very important is to make sure, like, while you're doing your system convening work, you need to really look after yourself, because I think, from the book and some of the conversations that we have on the mailing list, the system convening mailing list, it's really like, a lot of our work, they're not really, you don't get paid for this. You spend a lot of your own time, your energy to trying to do good. So you really need to look after yourself and make sure, if you have an empty glass, there's nothing you can give to other people or to share with other people. So being like, adaptive and like build that resilience in yourself is absolutely like vital. Another thing is about like, you have to be kind of like selfless, really, because what you need to think about is like, what you're doing here is not for me, but it's for like the bigger group, for the bigger good of a bigger community. And I think, when you get to that kind of stage, then that's, I see, when the large scale change or, transformation or social movement, can actually happen and takes place. So like I said, like, there are many people, like, they are doing lots of good things. So like, these are just some of the groups that, like, we are obviously like, aware of, and then, we're really working towards the same goal of making things better. And they are not possibly not called system convener, but actually what we're doing is really the same thing. So why adult development? So in Esther Ho's first session, she talk about adult development, and she used the tree ring metaphor to help us understand, like, who we are in our own self, development. So, I mean, although the focus today is not really on adult development, but I would suggest you to have a read of Matthew's book, Anti-Hero. Is actually one of the books that I really enjoy. And also have a think about, like, where you are in terms of, like, your own adult development stage. So regardless of, where you are in your, like, improvement or your convening journey, you will definitely, learn to pick up, and come across many new tools. And like, from my experience, different people use very different sets of tools. But to me, these are the most important things that we need to we need to work on it, like, really, really consciously all the time when you're doing system convening work. So the first thing is, like, language and connection. So, like, language is really, really important, and, like, that invitation to you give to the people is actually really, really vital if you want kind of like sustainable engagement. You need to be creative, because if you read the book, like, you will find out, like, a lot of the system convener, they don't have huge amount of resources that they can access. So you have to be really creative and adapt to the to your environment, in your own context, and that creativity is really, really essential. Diversity and inclusions, I mentioned earlier. Again, for people to come together, you must have, a shared purpose. If you don't have that, like, it's very difficult to sustain, the people that you want to look after. So I have a couple of questions. Like I mentioned, I am no, like, expert in system convening, but I just want to get kind of, like, get a feel, what other people think and feel about, what system convening is about. So Julian will help me, to send these questions to you, using the poll on screen. So, like, the first questions, I wanted to ask the group is, what is your expectation on system convening? Like, are you expecting this to be effortless, or are you expecting this to be effortful? So, Jerome, shall we give, like, a minute or 30 seconds?
Well, the poll is being filled rather quickly, and
Right.
the results, I can see the preview of the results is quite evident, so maybe I would just share them now. Are you folks seeing this? Can any non-host tell me if you see on the screen? Okay, I see David nodding. Great. So it's a easy win for effortful.
Easy win, yeah. But I am actually very curious. We have 3 audience. They choose effortless, and I would be really curious to know, why. What is the reason? Because I think system convening is such a new topic for us. So I would, there's no, like, definitive, like, right or wrong answer really. So I would be really curious to see, why they think it should be effortless.
Would any of the people who answered effortless would like to speak? It's always nicer in those calls when you speak up. Would anybody take this flag just to talk a little bit about this?
Anyone?
No, if not, that's okay too.
I mean, I'll say something if no one else wants to say anything. Just to say, I mean, in my sort of limited experience of what I think is systems convening, generally speaking, it is arduous, unacknowledged behind the scenes work, and even when something great emerges, often your role isn't even very visible in it. And yet sometimes things seem to happen that are really easy. Like the book itself was, it seemed to be quite easy for the Wengers to write the book, and the money needed. You know, sometimes it seems like when something wants to happen, almost it becomes easier than you expect, because, you know, I don't know, the world wants it to happen, or other people do. So it suddenly, it's kind of a bit magically more easy than you would have envisaged. And that's happened, you know, with one or two things. I was going to mention one other, but I feel like if I mention it, it might jinx it and then it will go wrong. So I'm not going to mention it.
We have someone put their hands up earlier.
Please go for it.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I'm good. I look at it as, you know, when you are within your space where you've always been operating in, bringing or mobilizing or bringing that relational effect within your teams to move them forward. For me, I feel that it should be an easy go by, an effortless affair, so that at the end of it, as a convener, or as a lead, as someone that looks forward to leading transformational change, you should not feel drained by the activity. Because in most cases, when you get to the element, to the level whereby it is now draining you, you get burnout. As a convener, you basically feel, what's the need of all this? But in essence, something effortless basically should be, it comes out naturally to you, as much as along the way you get to adapt tools or methodologies and the rest. But when it comes out naturally, it makes it far much easier for the people or the environment around you to coalesce together towards you and help give you that drive to move forward. That's how I look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we have Mark on the screen. You've put your hands up as well. So Mark, do you want to come
Yeah,
on?
thank you. I think to me it depends on your intent and the way that you go about things. And if you're going with the grain of a system, that can be easy, and at times it feels effortless. But that involves suspending a lot of your judgments and suspending your sense of what should be, to use more what the rest of people in the system want to do at that point. So I've kind of learned over the years to reset my expectations of change and not try and force through big things early on, but try and create momentum. And if things go in a general direction, then I'll support them, even if they're things that I wouldn't necessarily have done if it was up to me. But I think, and conversely, if you go against the grain of change, it can be really hard, and it can lead to burnout, and it can lead to ejection from a group or an organization if you push it to the extreme.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think this is like, you know, I share a similar feeling as well. And it's really important, like, you know, in this process, like navigate and be clear, you know, what is the wider environment is like, and what's the direction of travel, you know, you can sense at the time, and go with, you know, sometimes you just have to go with the flow. Right. So Jurium, would you be able to move on to my second questions?
Sure, no problem. Just a moment here. There you go. You should see it on your screen. And just so you know, folks, Zoom forces me to put a multiple choice question. It doesn't allow me to give you space for writing. If you want to add something to your answer in this question, you can in the talk, or you can add in the chat. And everybody else, please pay attention to the chat as well, just for the question.
So I think, you know, from some of the conversations that I was involved in, and I think, you know, a lot of the lots of people, you know, have a view, you know, of what system convening, you know, is about. from their own experience. So I think, I wanted to ask the questions, the opposite way. So what do you think system convening is not about? And I think if you can, pop some of your thought, in the chat box, that would be really, that would be great as well. Apart from doing the poll.
Well, folks, we need a bit more voting. I want at least 50% before I close the poll. Come on.
Oh, yeah. We have time. I think, we can give everyone a little bit more time, like, voting, and at the same time, like, put your thought in the chat. And I think that will be really valuable, for everyone to see.
Cool. So I got a good number now. I'm going to close the poll and then we'll talk about it. You should share results. You should be able to see everything right now. Is that right?
Yes. So we can see majority, 67% of the audience feel like, it's hard to define it. And I have to say, I would agree as well. So anyone wants to put, like, something, in the chat as well. I have a couple of things that I would share with everyone later on, but I think a lot of them are actually, they're not like really black and white definitive answer, to the questions. But I really like to see, what other people think, what system convening is not about. Is it a prescriptive probably? So it's really like I said, like system convening is such a new thing, I think, for us. So there's really just really sharing how you see it. So everyone will be different. Wanda, I don't know if this is what you mean. So sometimes I look at system as a way of mobilizing the local community. Jury, should we given like a minute, or I can see. I think this is possibly quite a difficult question.
Yeah, well, let's give it a shot, folks. As before, it's much nicer when somebody comes in and shares. Would anybody like to give a little hint? It doesn't have to be a complete explanation, but some insight that you would like to share with others, something that you thought system convenience was, but then when you tried in practice, it didn't work out. So anybody has an example like this?
So Wanda said, I don't think it is a prescriptive, and it's more of a movement and ethos. Okay. And Ursula asked, how does it different from co-productions?
Well, maybe we carry on then, Isabel, and because I know what happens in the slide. Oh, yeah, Roger.
I've got something that's just sort of lingering for me, and I put something about this incoherently in the chat. The thing that always goes around in my head is the extent to which the sort of different people view complexity in different ways, I think. And I'm not sure the extent to which there's general view that what we're doing in a systems convening role is to hold a space in which the complex sort of soup of what's going on can be alive in its own way and grow in its own way. It sounds a bit depersonalized, but there's something about tending the soil of vitality kind of thing, versus, or woven into that, the extent to which what's happening is allowing everybody whose activity is woven into that system to steer the whole thing in a direction that they would like it to go in. You know, how much kind of purposeful steering, and I don't mean the purpose of the systems convener, but the converging or diverging purposes of everybody involved. You know, there's one task is to kind of allow whatever to evolve in a sort of lifelike way. Evolution doesn't know where it's going, but off it goes, versus it being purposefully directed. And I don't mean purposefully directing it, but creating the conditions in which, when everybody's going, for God's sake, why can't we just talk to one another, whatever the frustrations might be, that, oh no, actually we can. Woo. And there's sort of, I don't know, I'm just holding that as a, I'm not sure.
I think these are like, questions that I have in my head as well. So, like I said, I am no expert on this. So these are the kind of things that I came across from lots of different discussions. So like, some people think like, is it a calling, when you're doing your system convening work, or should that be, a job? Is that something static? I mean, like, the list is actually, very, very long. So I'm not going to go through it, but I think it's just like, I think there's lots of like, questions, around this, because it's great, for the first time, we have a name, to things. But at the same time, I think the community will need a little bit of time to actually figure that out, what, system convening really means. I mean, and it also needs to work, for you in the environment you're working in, and in the context, whatever kind of like convening work you're doing. So there's I think at this moment in time, for me, there's really a lot of question mark. I still need to kind of like sort that out in my own head as well. So the way I see it brings me to the next questions, because I forgot the name of was it Stephen earlier, like when you talk about like complexity. So when we talk about system convening, there are so many tools or like theory, like for examples that I came across. These are just a list of things that I can kind of like think of, like there's lots of different improvement, like methodology. Talk about improvement science, like we have liberating structure, project management. I mean, from your kind of like perspective or your own experience, what are the kind of like tools that you feel they are essential and they are the must-have tools from your own experience? And I will be happy if you come out and talk. Because really this really needs to be an open discussion, because I don't think any one of us in the group have the answer. So anyone want to put your hands up?
Come on, folks, don't be shy.
Certainly add curiosity. I'm not sure it's a tool, but an attitude.
I would add dialogue. whether you want to call that a tool or not, but I think it's a really important component of this.
So these are really like the soft skills that, you know, we don't necessarily have, or I think everybody obviously are different. But I think, you know, it's worth, like, you know, to be conscious of, like, you know, these are the soft skills that we really is important for any convening work. I mean, that's how I see it.
Otto has a hands up. You can just unmute. It's cool, man.
Okay, thank you. I look at this in a more collective approach. In that, as you look at the role of a system convener, or what really stirs a person up to move in between the organizational units or structures to spur change. You may not at any particular time have all these tools at hand, but as a mobilizer of sorts, you will need to be in a position to basically bring all these resources close to you or within the same space, because you may not have them entirely within you, but as a convener, it will be critical that you identify when you're doing landscape mapping, you identify particular, let's say, individuals or resources that will come back into you. But key of them all is that you need to have the necessary behavioral and leadership skills, soft skills, to enable you bring all these tools that you have from other persons within the organization. Thank you.
Totally agree. You know, I think one of the things that I feel, you know, a lot of the system convening success really stemmed from your mindset. They're not necessarily, you know, the actual tools that you're using. So that is something that really resonates with me. Anyone wants to come forward and talk about, you know, how you feel about system convening?
Let me just point out the time. We only have 10 minutes, so we should be approaching the wrap up. Okay.
So I got a long list of like tools that I have came across over the years. So you know, I am Chinese. So, like, you know, for Chinese, like, you know, I actually have in the Chinese language, you know, we say, you know, the most important things for anything to be successful, there are three things, which are like people, place, and time. So you need to have all these things in kind of like harmony if you want to make a success of this. And this is possibly, you know, a bit abstractive in a way, because we don't necessarily, you know, have, like, you know, the right tools that we need when we need them. Because, you know, it might be because, you know, we have limited knowledge at the time when we need the tools, and we don't even know they exist. So these are, like, you know, I see them as, like, you know, your toolbox, and then, you know, you and I, you know, we will be building our toolbox in a very different way, and the content we have, you know, will be very different. But one of the most important thing is really, you know, are we able to make progress, and are we doing what we wanted to do? And we can also, like, you know, put our hands up and say, like, you know, well, I have, you know, made all the efforts, you know, that I can. I'm doing the best. And I think, you know, if you can say that, and that would be sufficient, because, you know, none of us are, like, you know, Superman or woman. So we need to realize, you know, that there's limit, like, you know, we have, and we need to respect that boundary, and not to kind of, like, you know, make ourselves burn out because, you know, we want to do system convening. And So this is like, I mean, all the contents that I have prepared, for this session. So Julian, did you say we have like, 5 more minutes or?
We have, yes, 7 minutes on the clock, which is enough.
Yeah, if you have any things that you would like to share, please feel free to come off the camera and speak, and or put in the chat box. Or if you have any questions that you wanted to ask, I might not have the answer, but definitely happy to have a discussions.
I saw a lot of really interesting questions in the chat as Isabel was speaking. So if anybody would like to bring one of those questions to the main table and everybody else comment on it, please feel free.
Can I just say, despite or perhaps because of the silence, I love these meetings.
I would agree with you, and I mean, again, I left my my Twitter contact, so if anyone wants to get in touch, that's fine. Like, please feel free to do so. I appreciate this might not be the best platform to have deeper conversation, I guess. Yeah, so Juriam, is that okay if we finish just a few minutes earlier?
Of course, absolutely. Thanks everybody for showing up. It was great to have you folks around. Thank you for the lovely conversations in the chat, and also when you folks open your mics. It always makes all the difference. And as you are probably aware, you're going to receive an email with the recording of this session and the slides afterwards, so you don't have to worry about that. Any closing remarks, Isabel?
No, so this is my last slide. So I appreciate everyone's like you're using your lunch break to join the session. So like have a great afternoon, and hopefully I will receive some of your contact if you want to have some other discussions around system convening or like quality improvement. Great, thank you very much.